to number 3 in the series. I had a long conversation yesterday morning with a good friend and colleague of mine. We were talking about how things would be when we emerge from the current situation, and we were looking primarily about what are the implications of working relationships and how and where work is done, and what are the opportunities for exploring different sorts of connectivity. What will change? What does this say about hierarchies, about who we reach out to? What sort of conversations do we have? And certainly about how do we explore the way we can support each other in collaborative working relationships rather than upwards, downwards, command working relationships. I guess it also, when we take a look at the way social media is being deployed, both as a work tool and also as a social connection tool, one thing I'm pretty sure about is that we're all going to be far more adept at using it when we come out of the process than we were when we went in. And that, again, has some really interesting questions about how we meet, where we meet. Perhaps more importantly for the conversation we're having this morning, how and where is work done, and what are offices for, what are factories for, and if we don't need to bring people in there so that we can supervise them and make sure they're not wasting time, is there a different way of doing this? And if we were to trust people more and invest in relationships at a greater level, would we see a more positive payoff? And the question is almost endless, and the answer is really a kind of shrug of, well, I don't know, but you know what, it just could do. So there we are. What I want to talk about for the rest of this brief presentation is connectivity, and maybe some things that we can do that echo back to the Magnificent Seven, really, about taking control over something and building something that's future focused. So it's about taking a look at our connected relationships and the ones that we maybe use ever so often, they're there every day with us, and then the ones that we might want to reach out to, and it'll just be a little tool or an exercise for you to do. So I hope you enjoyed, and as ever, if you want to reach out to us, the connection details will be shown at the end, and to restate, there will never ever be a charge for this sort of work on this sort of project. Okay, so please feel free to get in touch even if you just fancy a chat. Okay, bye bye now. I originally filled this one out, people known to me, and then I thought, oh, hang on a minute, if I've missed anybody off and they're looking at this, that's not going to go down too well. So what I've done is a couple of spider diagrams, and they could be mind maps, they could be circles, or it's up to you, about people who Frodo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings may have been connected to. And in the left spider, those are his close connections, and then as we go out to the right spider, they are more distant connections. And as you can see, there's a bit of linkage between the left and right hand side, and we're actually quite specific about naming who those people are. It feels really important that we are beginning to take stock of not only those who are very close to us, but those who may be a little bit removed from us, who we've not contacted for a while, and to actually write those names down somewhere. And then we might also think of people who we've not been in contact with for years, and add their names and connect those with a series of lines, so that we've actually got a pretty well developed spider diagram, or a mind map, or joined up list, whichever way suits you. So the end product would look a lot like, here are the people who are very close to me, in contact with regular. Here are those who maybe intermittent contact, might need to reach out to. Here are people who I've not been in touch with for a long time. There's another way of looking at this, and I'll show you right now. Okay, well, let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got the green and yellow clouds, and in those I'll be thinking about, particularly in the greens, these are the people who you would be pretty much regular touch with, and in the yellows maybe people who you're not in contact with that often. It might actually be colleagues who you see sort of regularly at work, but you wouldn't necessarily describe them as close friends, but they would, you would see them as being, yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing from you or hearing how you're doing. And then in that blue box, it's people who maybe there's quite a bit of distance between us, maybe that distance has grown over the years, or just the way that things work out between people. What I'm suggesting is that you populate those boxes and then reach out to them. Now, this is pretty much consistent with the Magnificent Seven to organise our thinking and our activities to help us, move through what are difficult and challenging times. It is a whole idea about helping someone, and I say that it could be collecting shopping or medications, dropping them a text or phoning them. Then that really seems to be pretty much consistent with what we're suggesting here. It's about reaching out, it's about building connectivity. Really important thing to do, and who knows, you could be redeveloping or re-energizing conversations that are going to be of massive benefit to the person who you've just reached out to, and who knows what can happen, what kind of synergy can come from a conversation like that. So well worth trying, well worth doing. I've got a view that a lot of us would like to see ourselves as independent people. We're not afraid to step out of the line and go our own way, and that actually feels okay, as long as it's a matter of choice. But there's a slight difference now, and here it is. This is an enforced independence. You see, for some of us, what's happened isn't about achieving greater independence. It's about enforced independence that feels a bit like falling off a ladder. You were on it and you were okay, then suddenly you were in midair and now you've hit the ground with a bump, or you're just about to. And if we stretch that a bit further, nobody really plans for this when we climb ladders. If we have a think about our usual life, how many connections we have during the day, organised and formal ones, semi-formal ones, casual ones, incidental ones, they have been reduced completely. And it is my view that we need to do something about that, and to help others as we're doing so. So let's just take a look about what can happen when we start to think about ourselves as connected human beings and take some action, do something about it with some intention. It feels to me that there are a couple of running thought patterns here that are almost colliding into each other. The one is that we will make ourselves quite uncertain, quite sad, quite agitated if we try to take control over things over which we have no control. And all the actions that we're taking at the minute, that we're being asked to take, is about taking control, but it's taking control in a manner we don't necessarily want to. So if we add that to the notion that uncertainty can itself be quite daunting, it feels to me absolutely appropriate that we take some action. And for me, that action is the action of seeking connectivity and building groups of people around us who become protective, who become supportive, who we can reach out to individually or in group chat. We've got massive IT resources available to us to do that. And maybe what we now need to be thinking about is, how do we look after other people so that we, as an outcome of that, are looked after ourselves? So the whole intention of this clip really is to think about who our connections are, where they are, the last time we might have connected with them and why, and by reaching out, what could the benefits be of building up and reinforcing networks, groups, and looking forward to how we can take that connectivity into the time when we are through this situation, and we can look about how we can apply maybe some of the things we've learned, the lessons we've learned, and the healing we've experienced to maybe build ourselves a better and more positive and caring future. For some of us right now, for some people we know, it might seem a very long, barren, cold, lonely road, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are choices, and we can choose to think about how we can maybe bring some warmth and some light into our journey, so that the footprints we're leaving are ones that we can look back on, and they become a testimony to the way we've shifted our thinking to a far more positive and productive place that enables us to feel more certain about the direction of travel we're heading in, and also how we can reach out to help others in their journey. And the purpose of this particular clip, this slide, is to emphasize that although it is great when we're physically connected to someone, that we can share their time and their space in the same environment, that's not what connectivity is all about. We can actually be with someone without physically be with them. We can sense, we can sense their presence through their connectivity to us when we're talking to them, when we're thinking about them, when we're looking at photographs of them. What I think is really critical is that we understand that by reaching out in this manner, we're taking control over our own emotional well-being, and we're also increasing the well-being and sense of belongingness of others, and that has to be a very virtuous and very productive circle. There'll be more on the way, and I'm sure that you can gather from me that I have a great deal of passion for the notion of connectedness. There are a lot of us who really do enjoy our own company, enjoy our own time, but looking back at some of the ideas in the clip, it doesn't need to be enforced on us. And for those of us who are pretty robust about it, can we just remember that there are going to be others for whom this is a pretty difficult and challenging time, where for some it must seem insurmountable. You never know the power of reaching out, how reaching out at that moment could stop somebody overthinking stuff and sending themselves into a quite a dark, lonely and frightening place. Your connection to them, your reaching out, could be a lifeline that enables them to understand that they are wanted, they are valued, and we never know the power of these relationships. But what I can promise is that they will help us to maybe rebuild, re-engineer the way in which we connect with each other as we move forward when all of this is over. Thanks for taking some time to listen to me, and the contact details are on the way.